Hello friends, welcome to my new series, YARNS, Conversations with Cruisers. This is a new podcast available in both video and audio format, where I just sit down with people I meet and hear their stories. I plan on doing this as I make my way around the world. None of these interviews are scheduled ahead of time. It's just people that I happen to meet, I find them interesting, and I asked them if they would like to sit down and tell me some of their sea stories. I hope you enjoy the video. You can also find the audio version wherever you get your podcast from. And let me know down in the comments what you think.
We came to a little town, I think it was called Kotor, which was one of those Mediterranean walled towns with narrow streets and balconies that people can reach across and shake hands, and lots of little shops and alleyways and restaurants. But then a magical castle above it, and crenellated wall that went right the way up, and it was like being in Game of Thrones. It was like, this is somewhere we'd never heard of, we've never seen.
It's like it's like living in a movie.
Yeah,
it is. But I think that's the charm of cruising.
Yeah.
Is that you can choose your destination.
Yep.
You don't have to book your holiday and go to somewhere and then you spend your 2 weeks there. You can actually just spend one night, or you can say, actually, this is really cool, I really like this place, so we're actually going to stay a week and do some walking. Or you decide, actually, we've done this now, and you just take the anchor up. And it's that lovely feeling of independence that what you want to do is possible. Wherever you want to do it, you just drop your hook.
When I was a little lass, mother up and told me, where all the way we'll haul away, Joe. Someday your love will call and take you out to sea. Where haul away, we'll haul away, Joe.
we're on, rolling.
We're on. Rolling. Okay.
So you're going to run this
Yeah,
with interview style.
just casual conversation.
You're on?
And will you guys introduce yourself and introduce your boat?
Yeah. Why don't you go first, darling? Ladies first.
Okay, I'm Laura, and our boat's called RaLa. The reason it's called RaLa is that Ian's surname is Redwood, so it's Redda's and Laura's adventure.
Oh, nice. Nice.
So I'm Ian. I met with Laura 4.5, 5 years ago now.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And from early days, we discussed that we really wanted to do something different in the latter part of our lives. And that
midsection of our lives.
That's
not
right,
latter
midsection.
parts,
Yeah.
midsection.
Exactly. And we decided that we would buy a boat and get going. So we did. We went to Greece, didn't we?
We went to Greece. We spent 7 months refitting. We stayed there.
We lived there.
We lived there indeed, and it was hard work because neither of us had done any of it before.
No.
But you hail from the UK.
Yeah, come
Yeah.
from the UK.
So one of the two great lessons there we had: don't live on a boat if you're fixing it up.
For sure.
Because
Terrible idea.
you will end
Really
up
bad.
living in such a mess. And then the second one was, so we hired an Airbnb. The second one was, if somehow you can get your own wheels while you're doing it, then that saves you an awful lot of time and money to enable you to get backwards and forwards to Chandler's and all the people you need to see, because we ended up effectively project managing steel workers, glass fibre workers, electricians, boat builders, riggers, and pretty much every discipline that you could, mechanical engineers, people you could imagine could work on a boat. And we did a huge amount of work ourselves, but at the same time, when you want expert opinion, when you want people to help you, to give them their best to make sure your craft is safe, you need to get around and go and see people. And so having your own wheels is really useful.
So, and then, did you guys have sailing experience before?
None at all. Never been on a boat before. So, zilch.
Yeah.
That's Laura.
You had some.
And I did. I'd sailed for a reasonable amount of time, probably about 30 years, often with families on charters. And I built up my experience by doing courses in between times to try to match my boating time with classroom time or on the boat learning time, to try to find out different ways of doing things. So I went to different suppliers of training. I never went to the same one twice. I wanted to get different experts' ideas, because there's always more than one way to skin a cat. And I worked my way up, and eventually I got up to Yachtmaster Ocean, and that gave me sufficient confidence to convert that into a commercial license, and I was doing deliveries for about and instruction for about 2 years. Although I'd say that compared to some other people, my hours at sea probably weren't as, or days at sea weren't as high as some people who then go for those qualifications.
Yeah. And so, when you first went sailing, what was your initial feeling, as far as like your first experience of sailing? How did it come to you? Like, did you enjoy it? Did it make you nervous? Did you get sick?
I went and did a day skipper course. So I did the 5-day tutorials in the classroom and the practical, and then I did the practical in the UK, which gave me a basic understanding of how to sail a boat. But it doesn't give you any real understanding of what living on a boat is all about, which is a completely different kettle of fish. So when we put the boat in the water in Greece, I then had to learn this whole new language, and it's like learning Russian, because nothing is logical. Everything is called something completely different.
It's a centuries-old language. It is specific. It's a very specific language.
Absolutely, and you have to have some basics on the, some basic understanding of, do you pull the red one or do you pull the green one? And then it's better if you know which one is which and where it goes to and what it's about to do. So that took a while to get my confidence going, but we stayed in and around the Ionian in Greece for about 4 months, just while we kind of got used to the boat, how she sailed, how we sailed her together, how we maneuvered into different situations. And once we kind of built up our confidence, we then started sailing across the Mediterranean. And we spent about 6 months sailing all the way around Croatia and Italy. And
wow, it's supposed to be fantastic cruise.
Fabulous cruise.
So, do you have a moment that you remember where you like smiled and you're like, "This is it"? Like, is there an anchorage or an experience where you're like, "Oh yeah, this is it"? Where you got past the hump of like the learning curve,
I think I still have that most days.
Yeah.
I don't think you lose that.
No, but I'm saying, do you remember the first time? Like, where you went from being like, okay, I don't know about this, to being like, yes, this is it.
I think it was probably my first night passage.
Yeah.
Because...
Going to Montenegro.
Was it? I can't remember exactly where it was, but it's that first, when you are holding the boat on your own, and he's fast asleep, and we do watches through the night, so one of you has to be on watch. And it's the beautiful stars, and the moon's out, and it's the noise of the water and the sails and the boat's creaking, because this is a very old boat. And that I suddenly thought, so this is proper cruising.
Yeah.
This is not just going from day anchorage to day anchorage and having a bit of a snorkel and getting on the boat. This is actually what we're going to be doing, and it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think we also, and it was a shared experience. I mean, for me, I'd sailed lots of boats, but owning a boat is so different. You stop just becoming a sailor and you start to become a systems manager, because you have to understand how things integrate and how they balance off. And if you don't, you can't just hand it back to the charterer. Right. So owning a boat was different. And then I think when we broke out, we left the Ionian and we went to Montenegro. Oh my word, what a stunning and unusual place that I'd never heard anything about before. We went into field land, into this sort of giant bays, and the mountains are really close to and really steep, and we came to a little town, I think it was called Kotor, which was one of those Mediterranean walled towns with narrow streets and balconies that people can reach across and shake hands, and lots of little shops and alleyways and restaurants, but then a magical castle above it, and crenellated wall that went right the way up, and it was like being in Game of Thrones. It was like, this is somewhere we'd never heard of, we've never seen.
It's like it's like living in a movie.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
But I think that's the charm of cruising,
Yeah.
is that you can choose your destination.
Yep.
You don't have to book your holiday and go to somewhere and then you spend your 2 weeks there. You can actually just spend one night, or you can say, actually, this is really cool, I really like this place, so we're actually going to stay a week and do some walking. Or you decide, actually, we've done this now, and you just take the anchor up. And it's that lovely feeling of independence that what you want to do is possible. Wherever you want to do it, you just drop your hook.
And like you're saying, like destination sailing is so different than day sailing.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, yes.
And then once you start that, you're like, oh, we're not going back to that port.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
right.
different
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, keep
It's
going.
like, I can keep going forever. I can see everything.
And the pull to keep going west is really, really strong, because each time you get to another destination, the sea or the ocean gets bigger. So your experience equally gets bigger. But the places that you're starting to visit are becoming more and more extreme, more and more isolated. And you have to be more and more independent.
You know,
have to know how to put things right, because there's no one in the middle of the ocean that can sort out the engine.
All about self-sufficiency.
Absolutely.
You know, when we started, I would have said, I wouldn't have said that we were sailors. I'd have said that we were explorers. And then we crossed our first ocean, and actually it was then you actually really experienced the joy of sailing, the sort of the multiple days at sea, as opposed to the day or 2 day or 3 day hops to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably where we are today, then crossing the Pacific, that I think that has helped define us as sailors and explorers now.
One thing that was,
for sure.
One thing that was very interesting, when we crossed the Atlantic, we did it in 2 halves. So we went to Cape Verde, and then we went on to St. Lucia. And the trip from Cape Verde to St. Lucia was 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
We did it in about 16 days. And the preparation and the angst and the support and the, God, are we going to ever get there, and all that kind of thing was tremendous. Latterly, we did Tahiti to Fiji, which was also a 2 week sail. And we decided the day before that we'd go.
Isn't it fascinating? And like no anxiety, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I found that this season as well. Like after I went from Hawaii to Tuamotu, after that, literally every passage I was looking forward to it. I was like, oh yeah,
here we go, we'll get going again.
No anxiety, like zero.
Crossing the first part of the Pacific, so Panama to the Marquesas, was 5 weeks. 35 days at sea.
Wow.
And that is, plus it's about a 10-day gap before we actually set off, waiting for a good weather window. So, suddenly the 2 weeks of crossing the Atlantic just kind of thinks like a bit of a puddle, and it sounds ridiculous, but your confidence really grows with every passage you
now if it's a 1,000-mile passage, I'm like, oh cool, no problem.
Fun.
Knock that out, no
9
problem.
days, 10 days.
I might get 2 books.
So once because you obviously want to be confident and comfortable in your boat, not just with how it works and runs, but also with the safety systems and backup stuff you've got. So 2 chart plotters, main steering and hydrovane. We've got 2 masts because we're a ketch. And everything it's really good to know what your backup is and what your plan would be if. And
we're super cautious sailors.
Yeah.
We don't we don't risk
I think
the
most
boat or
cruisers
ourselves.
are. It's like it's only responsible.
We're not racing.
You're not
We're
racing.
just getting there.
Like I've had people be like, especially dudes, be like, "Oh, I'd love to bury the rails and go for it." I'm like, I don't like to stress my boat out.
Absolutely
not.
I'm
Why
like,
would you?
I care for my boat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
It's
you
very
leave
important.
early.
Yeah.
Really early.
I want my boat as flat as possible.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I ain't trying to be cute. Like, take care of the boat and she'll take care of you.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
most people say, you know, they'll put the engine on under 5 knots. Well, we don't really put the engine on unless it's sort of 2.
Mm-hmm.
We're happy to bounce about, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I think
As long as it's not too flappy.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Do you guys have any light air cells?
Yeah.
we've got a couple of spinnakers.
Mm-hmm.
One's an asymmetric and a spinnaker.
That's the jam.
We've got a third one as well. We actually have a staysail made of the same sort of light material
cool.
for the mizzen.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
we
cool.
fly that at the back on a sort of anything beyond a beam, really.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what it's like when you're mid ocean to have some colour
Yeah.
in your sight.
It's so fun.
It is such a
Yeah.
treat.
Yeah, it just changes your perspective from,
Mhm.
It really brings
from
joy
ocean
to
colours
the
to
day.
It
something
is.
a bit brighter.
And
yeah.
it's like, it's also a pleasure because in those conditions, the sea's flat.
Yeah,
And glassy.
So it's like, even if you're cruising at 3.5 knots,
yeah.
it's like real nice.
And you
It's
get
like-
the reflection, don't you?
Yeah,
The
it's
reflection of the
stunning,
sail in the
yeah.
water. Yeah, very special.
And then at night, I remember there was one night when just before I went off and watch, I said, "There's something out there, Ian. I'm not sure what it is, but I can hear it breathing. I can't see it, but I can hear it breathing."
Yeah.
And you just know that there's either a whale just
Mhm.
coming with you, keeping you company, or there's some dolphins. Anyway, about half an hour later, they all surfaced, didn't they?
Yeah,
You could
or else
suddenly
I'd
see
fallen asleep in the cockpit.
Yeah. Was it whales or
that's-
dolphins?
I think it was a whale.
Yeah.
I think they were just checking us out and just
Yeah.
keeping us safe. And
Yeah, they're curious, aren't they?
They are for
really
sure.
curious.
I've had countless experiences with whales, and
They
and
make
they're
a
bigger than the
wonderful
boat,
noise.
so
Oh,
they're
gosh,
just
yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Mm.
And so, like, you guys started in Greece
Search
Yeah.
for Greece. 4
And
years,
what
4.5 years.
4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And what was your sort of, each of you, answer this, what was your roughest experience that you recall? That was like, this is a bummer.
Mm.
Well,
You go
ru-
first, then
ru-
I'll say
rough
mine.
experiences are all to do with the weather.
Yep.
And I think for me, the scariest weather is that which you can't predict, which is electric storms.
Mm.
Yep.
So where you've got electric conditions and you've got lightning going off sufficient to be able to read a book at times,
Mhm.
it can be very disconcerting because
Mhm.
you can't help but think, this is a flattish piece of water and we're the only thing out here that could
Mhm.
potentially conduct. It's a little bit nerve-wracking.
Did you experience that in the Atlantic? That's where I found more on my
No.
passage in the Atlantic. I found a lot of lightning.
We
Right.
had, I think our worst lightning storm was going from Moorea to Huahine
Oh, okay.
overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And we had about 10 hours, I think it was, 8
Yeah.
to 10 hours of constant lightning
and it,
hitting the sea
Yikes.
either side of us. So, you know, all the
Yeah.
electrics went in the oven,
Mm-hmm.
but you're still sitting there.
what? No, hang on. Let me
Occasionally-
just explain that because the oven was okay, but we put all our electronic gear in the oven because it acts as a Faraday cage.
Yeah.
All the electrics going in the oven might sound like the oven going up. Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
But that was really scary.
Yeah.
yeah.
I
We
had
just
really
got caught out.
I had really bad lightning in Fiji. Were you guys there in Port Dinnerall when that big storm hit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was out under anchor, and that was
Really?
pretty like
Ouch.
it
Yeah.
it woke me up. It was so bright. at
Did you
points.
try and get close to a yacht with a bigger mast than you?
Yeah, there's like a really interesting podcast on 59 North with scientists talking about how yachts actually have their own defense mechanism to where the tops of masts do like St. Elmo's fire,
Yeah.
where there's a ball of plasma and it's actually a diverter for lightning.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
it's super.
Is that right? I didn't
Yeah,
know
I'll
that.
find
Yeah.
the link and send it to you because it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's like
I think I read something like it.
Yes.
Unusually,
Mm.
although it appears that lightning comes from the sky to the ground, it's actually the opposite. It goes from the ground to the sky,
Mhm.
albeit that's not how you see it. But it's the chain reaction builds up there, and that's why they have those basket diffusers at the top of a mast
Mhm.
with spikes, and it helps to break up the points that would otherwise link it to
Yeah.
the various.
And that they say that
Positive and
plasma
negative ions.
makes it less conductive, so then it's not the quickest.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really interesting. And then obviously, like in the age of sail, they would see the yards glowing, and they're like, "Oh, it's good luck." And it happened to be good luck because they never got struck when they saw St. Elmo's fire.
Ah.
So, but they didn't know that. They just thought, oh, it's good luck if they see him glowing.
Oh, wow.
And it happens to be scientifically actually pretty good luck.
No, I would
because,
like to see that because I don't
Yes,
understand that.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
so I'll send you guys the link to that,
Yeah.
and I'll post it in the description because it's fascinating. So lightning,
I
bummer.
think the other thing is we've been very fortunate since we came across the Atlantic. We've been doing downwind sailing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And
spoils you though.
downwind sailing in a high seas and big winds isn't nearly as scary as when we came from Fiji to here. We got caught out for about 36 hours. And although we trust RaLa implicitly, she's a really deep, heavy, ocean cruising blue water boat. So I don't think we have any worries about her.
No.
It's us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we do this?
That's the weakest link, right?
Yeah.
So that's the second. I think for me that's the second most biggest worry.
When there's just two on board, yeah.
Because if one of us goes down, then we're solo sailing.
Yep.
You know, if one of us goes down with seasickness or becomes, impaired for some reason, hurt themselves, then you're down to solo sailing. Now that said, it feels like a lot of that fear or worry is self-generated, because I'm sure that if that was the case, we would overcome.
You just get on with
the
it.
problem.
What else?
Yeah,
You don't
you
have
do.
a choice.
You know, look, I mean, like you do. I mean, you're solo sailing all the time, and some of the biggest challenges I think you face with your fears is actually expose yourself to what's going on, find a solution, and actually you'll come through it, and there you go.
Yeah. Well, it's also
less of
good
a fear
practice.
next time.
Whichever, it doesn't always have to be the man or the woman, whichever partner is the one that is less experienced.
Yeah.
It's always good for that person to run the ship from time to time.
Yeah.
Like I know Lynn and Larry Pardee, like there were times where Lynn would sell the boat solo to other anchorages, just so that she was up on, okay, I for sure can do this.
Yeah.
While Larry would be doing something and
Yeah.
he would meet her at another spot. So I think that's like a really good
That is a
safety
very good
mechanism,
idea.
even if the other partner's on board,
Mm-hmm.
to be like, okay, you're gonna like run through this everything like I'm not here.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty fair on each other when we are on watch. So we do 4-hour watches overnight and then 3 in the day if we're on a long passage. And whoever is on watch makes the decision. Although Ian is the skipper,
Yeah.
He wouldn't come up and say, what the F are you doing that
Right,
for?
yeah.
You should have done this or whatever. Sometimes. But it's important to have confidence in your own abilities, because you've got 4 hours where he needs to sleep, or I need to sleep,
Yep.
without having to call him up to help unless there's an emergency.
Yeah.
So you have to have confidence in being able to go forward and do something if something needs to be done. Always where we strap on and hook up. But it's very important for the other person to be able to get their rest.
Absolutely.
So you have to be able to sail the boat on your own. It takes us
So
4 hours.
for that reason, we would tend to reef down early and keep her very manageable, so that you're not having to wake the other person up.
Yep.
To come and help you to go to that stage. So at night we're very cautious sailors. We tend to.
Yeah. So what's your
Under
sail plan
canvas.
at night? Like when it
Under
gets
canvas.
dark. Yeah. So what do you do though? What does that mean on this boat?
Well,
Well,
minimum of.
We chose the ketch because the sails are that much smaller, so that actually you can manage them much better on your own.
Minimum of 2 reefs in the main if we got the main up. Minimum of 1 reef in the foresail if we've got the foresail up, because with 1 reef on, with 1 wrap on, it becomes much easier to.
Yeah.
So that's as a minimum. And if we had the mizzen up, then we would have a minimum of 1 reef in that. Well, it's only got 1 reef, but we'd have that in so that we wouldn't be able to put it. Wouldn't need to put that in.
That's almost the exact same. At night, I have 2 reefs in the main, especially in the trades. 2 reefs in the main, 90% or 100% headsail, because I can get that headsail taken care of
And
real
I can
quick.
do that too.
Yeah. So that's it. And Keith said the same thing. He was like, he always runs 2 reefs at night.
Always.
Yeah.
It's like,
Even
because
if
you
you
know the
drop-
squalls at night are
Oh.
just
Yeah.
so
And
obnoxious.
but you can't always see them coming.
I can
You
never
can-
see them
Yeah.
coming.
You can have a really good lookout, but if it's a dark sky anyway and there's no moon, to see this black squall coming at you is near on impossible. So
Yeah.
it's better to be prepared and go slower and make up the time in the day.
1000%.
It's only the Pacific that we've used 3 reefs. We had a 3rd reef put in Portugal. When we got to Portugal, we said, right, let's be cautious. Let's get a 3rd reef.
It's
put
nice
in.
to have.
Really nice.
And we've used it in the Pacific.
Yeah.
We never used it before.
I've only used it maybe 4 times, but
Yeah.
even those 4 times, especially here,
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I can't believe how fast I'm going with my 3rd reef and like a handkerchief of a headsail.
Yeah.
I was flying.
Yeah.
I was like,
The
whoa.
winds are big winds here, aren't they?
Yeah.
Really big.
Yeah.
We've been quite surprised by that. We really have. Just even from sailing around Fiji, it was they just come at you from nowhere.
Yeah. So in the South Pacific, what were your favorite sort of like memories
Oh God.
from this season?
Oh, right. Well, the South Pacific is not a uniform cruising ground. It changes quite a lot, and there are joys to be found in all of the different regions, I think. So we didn't go to as many of the regions as others might have. So we went to the Marquesas, then the Tuamotus, then from the Tuamotus to the Societies, they're all in French Polynesia. Then from the Societies we went directly to Fiji because of the weather and because of COVID had closed down other ports on the way. So we would have loved to have gone to both Tonga and Samoa, but
Next time.
next time.
Yeah, you can't see it all. That's
Can't
what I
see it
said.
all.
Can't see it all.
And then from Fiji we found to be one of the most amazing cruising grounds.
Absolutely.
We came to New Zealand. So you asked what the best was, or what the most.
Just some of your memories that,
Impossible.
yeah, some of your memories that stick out. You know.
Well, the Marquesas were our first landfall after 35 days, so they actually really meant something.
Pretty vivid.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yes, that
we
was amazing.
we absolutely loved that. Suddenly you have colours, you have bird life, and you have people, and you have civilization and the opportunity to commune with other sailors who've just done the same thing. So that's a really big thing, and I think often overlooked, but the ability to socialise and mix with people and share your experiences and talk with them is very important.
Decompression, isn't it?
Yeah.
Particularly if you haven't seen a single boat in 5 weeks.
Oh yeah, I know all about it.
and the
Just-
ability to buy fresh food and
Yeah.
have somebody cook your food for you.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Like, anyone that can cook the food that's not me, I
Yeah.
love you.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and just do something that I haven't done.
Yeah.
So the bays in the Marquesas were incredible. There was great walking, very friendly people. It was lovely, and the walking, the hills are vertiginous,
It's quite spiritual there.
and the
Beautiful
people,
walking.
yeah, and they're forested, and it's exciting.
Oh.
You're somewhere different.
And it was the first time that we had swum with giant manta rays.
Oh yeah.
That
and
was
dolphins.
Tuamotus. Oh no, you're right. Actually, it was, wasn't it? Yeah. You're right.
And that was just extraordinary.
It is
Quite
life changing.
Yeah.
And you hear these dolphins chatting to each other, and they're really inquisitive and come round and see you.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of with your snorkel on, poodling about, doing your own thing. And then these enormous mantas. I mean, just vast.
12 foot.
and they're not shy at all.
Spans.
And the beauty,
They're so gentle.
the beauty of them, just magnificent.
So it was an underwater incredible
It was.
experience, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
I haven't been to the Marquesas, but they're interesting, right? Because they're the only ones that don't have protective reefs, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
they don't
right.
have any.
No,
So how were the anchorages there? Did you find
mixed.
very deep?
Mixed. If you could find a very sheltered bay, then actually they'd be fine. But not all the bays are sheltered from every direction.
Yeah.
And we found a lot of it was coral sand, so it was the first time we'd ever experienced dragging on a regular scale.
Yeah.
We found that it was difficult to get an anchor to bury sufficiently well in coral sand. Some of the bays were deep, weren't they? Certainly when we got to Fatu Hiva, which is one of the original landfalls that people take on when they do the coconut milk run, but was prohibited when we landed because of COVID. They made us land at the north part of the Marquesas. So the anchorages were, because they were few and far between, actually sometimes they got quite crowded. And that also was a challenge, especially if the holding wasn't good. There are no marinas in the Marquesas. There is few places to haul out. In fact, only one I can remember was Hivaroa, unless you're going to improvise a haul out, and you know, anything's possible.
Yeah.
But there was a proper haul out system in Hivaroa, not a big boat yard. Yeah, so that was anchorages. You're invariably at anchor. We didn't do any tying of lines to shore. I did hear of people who did that in some of the smaller anchorages. I think that's about it, really, isn't it?
And then you guys went to Tuamotu?
We went on to the
Tuamotus, oh my word.
which were just extraordinary.
Yeah.
Quite extraordinary. And a completely different sort of sailing, that you have to really time your entrance through the passes.
Yeah.
You have to be absolutely on cue with when you're going in, and you have to stand off if you're not at the right time.
Yep.
And basic things like anchoring, we had to change our whole anchoring theories, in that you have to
Because of bombings.
lift your chain.
Yeah, did you guys floated your chain?
Floated the
floating
chain, yeah.
But we still had very occasionally issues of dragging because of the coral sand.
Yeah.
So that was kind of alarming.
Floating your chain was quite a challenge. It meant that we were reluctant to actually anchor in anything too deep, because you've got to be able to dive down to sort out what's going on.
Yeah.
Or certainly you can see your anchor to work out what might have happened and how you might unwrap it.
Having said that, we were okay.
We were, yeah. I do remember one stage we were bringing up the anchor. We actually brought up with it a coral bommy about the size of this table.
I saw another boat do that.
Yeah.
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 Couldn't get it off the anchor.
Yeah.
We had to get someone to come and help us, and then we got a piece of rope around it and pulled the thing. And
oh yeah, but it wasn't. You couldn't shake it off.
Couldn't shake it off.
Yeah.
No. So I had to tie it on, drop the anchor so the hook came out, then drop the rock, then pick up the anchor.
Wow. Yeah.
Hey ho.
Right. All the while driving around in circles so you don't end up on the rod.
Yeah.
That's the trick about being solo. Some silliness happens like that. You're like, oh, again, you just drive out to deep water. That's what I
take it with you, and then have another go.
What is great though, and I'm sure you'll have experienced this, is there's no end of people who will come and help.
Yeah.
And it's a great camaraderie between sailors that people will.
And I think the more remote you get, the more the sailing fraternity comes into its own.
Becomes a community.
We have found such kindness.
Well, we're all very specific, right?
Strangers.
We have something very, very intense in common.
Yep.
That is like instantly kind of like become like, okay, yep, we,
But
we're
the
there.
more remote you are, the less ability you have to find a part.
Yeah.
So if someone has got a part that you might want,
Yeah.
they just hand it over. They don't want cash for it. They just give it to
Oh
you.
yeah, for
It's
sure.
extraordinary. I've never experienced that kind of fraternity that we now
It's
are a part
an
of.
amazing community.
Wonderful,
For sure.
welcoming, not biased to any class, financial background, nationality, race, creed, whatever.
Just like
Everyone is doing the same thing.
And also it's a good opportunity to learn how to improvise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because when you're that remote, you can't get stuff in a shop, and actually fixing stuff becomes like a daily task for whatever it might be, broken glasses or,
I know, when I would see
Yeah.
readers all season,
Yeah.
I would see readers, I'm like,
Let me have
just
them.
like,
Yeah.
because I lose them or break them so often that,
One thing we did find once we'd left the two motors, and we did half a dozen of them, I think, we went to the societies and we went straight to Tahiti, and we were both kind of, whoa.
Yeah.
bit.
This is, I mean, people come
bit
here on
overwhelmed,
holiday
really.
and it's the most beautiful island, but we just wanted out of it as
Yeah.
quickly as possible.
Yeah, Papiete is
Very
pretty
strange.
intense
Yeah.
after being in the wild for
Yeah.
so long.
The noise and
Yeah.
the cars.
And going to a supermarket and seeing all that produce and kind of, oh my word,
Yeah.
I've only ever
Carrefour
been in
is
corner
very
stores.
intense and
Yeah.
very bright. You're like, wow, it's really
it's
happening.
almost overwhelming. You walk in there and I was kind of,
Yeah.
now what?
Mhm.
Food, green
Yeah.
food,
Yeah.
Right.
fruit,
No,
Oh.
eggs.
eggs.
Oh my gosh, that was
Yeah.
the thing, man. It was like
Oh gosh, anything.
getting eggs in the Tuamotu was just like almost an impossible feat.
But
It was
you
like-
have a different way of shopping when you're in a place like Tuamotus, or even the cases, in that you go into the shop and then you decide what you're going to eat.
Yep.
Whereas you in
Yeah.
Tahiti, you decide what you're going to eat,
In the Western
and
world,
then you go into the
yeah.
shop.
in Western
Completely
world,
different.
you decide what you're going to buy and you
Mhm.
go in and buy it.
Yeah.
But there, you've got
No
to see
choice.
what's available.
And
Mhm.
also, you have to stand back because the locals get first pick.
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
only have a ship coming in once every 3 weeks,
Yep.
and you've got a whole load of cruisers sitting out there. You know,
Mhm.
you take their one lump of cheese that's meant to last the whole village.
And that's what I always did too, especially in the Tuamotu, is I would just buy little bits at each market.
Yeah.
I would never load up from one market, and then I would try to find another spot to get a little bit.
And we found in the Caribbean that that's the local way anyway. Sometimes people are only buying a couple of slices of bread and one egg and half a sausage, and that's their lunch.
Mhm.
And then they come back again to buy something for their evening meal, and it's kind of like different way to
Yeah.
way we're shopping.
For sure.
But you had no water maker.
I had no water maker. Actually, this boat down here, Sand Dollar, that
Uh-huh.
orange boat,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's who gave me water
That's who gave you water.
in Rangiroa. Yeah.
Because we,
I think
American
that boat's
cruisers.
called Sandalor.
What do you think?
If you look at the spelling of it, it's very clever. It's not dollar, it's Dalor. It's to make it, when you look at it,
Yeah.
I did too. I thought sand dollar.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I call
And
it.
they've
Yeah, they're
fiddled
real
with
sweet
it.
though. And then I had dinner with them in that little village in Raiatea.
Okay.
We had dinner there as well.
But we
Nice.
didn't have a water maker all the way through until the end of when we were leaving the Caribbean,
Oh, cool.
and then we decided to put one in
It is-
because all the
it-
way through the Europe and all the way through the Caribbean you can get water. Even
Mhm.
though people tell you there's no water, you can get it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's fine,
And
and it's
it's
not
a-
expensive
it's a
and easy to
Tougher
pick
look
up.
in French Polynesia.
But
Isn't
there's
it?
well, you say there is
I,
none.
yeah, and the only place where there was none was Tuamotus.
Okay.
Zip.
Everywhere else, I never had a problem, and I never got below a quarter of a tank
Mm.
the whole season.
That's good.
But I'm also a solo sailor, you
Yeah.
know.
Do you,
So
do
and
you
I
wash
wash.
in the sea?
Yes,
Okay.
I wash everything, even rinse in the sea. I'm like,
So it's just the cooking and drinking you need it for.
yep, yeah. So and especially on passage, I have to force myself to drink because I can almost get dehydrated from trying to be
Yeah.
so frugal with it. But yeah, I carry 35 gallons in my belly tank, and then I carry I have 3 jerry cans that are like 5 gallons each as my
Okay.
backup,
Yeah.
and they're all separate.
Yeah.
So
We do very
We,
similar.
we have similar, and we also carry some 5-litre plastic bottles of water,
oh yeah,
just in case.
Mhm.
You know,
yeah.
You
I'm
can do without
paranoid
food,
about
but you
running out of
can't do
Yeah,
water.
without
I have like emergency water bags in my ditch bag and all that
Oh, yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So.
well, we also we keep 2 of our jerry cans of water on the back of the boat,
Mm,
so that and they've got a carabiner on with a line, and the jerry cans are not full, so that once the life raft goes out,
Mhm.
should it go out, first thing that goes onto that line is 2 water jerry cans, so we've got extra water.
yeah, that's smart. Mhm.
Yeah, quite pleased with that. But yeah, there's little systems you come up with on the way, isn't it?
Yep,
You know.
for sure. And so, now what's the plan?
Huh.
You're in New Zealand,
Finally.
Aotearoa.
Yeah. Well, we've reached the land of the long white cloud, and
That's
actually,
right.
the long white cloud is present and among
It
us.
is very present and
It's
grizzly.
damp. And
Grizzly.
I had to find the duvet, which I couldn't remember where. We haven't had any kind of jumper or
No.
practically any clothes on.
I know
for the last
exactly. I
couple
haven't
of years.
worn any
Yeah.
clothes
No.
in a long time, but I've been fully
Cold.
clothed. Lots of clothes at night.
So in summary, I'll keep it short. I think New Zealand is an opportunity for exploring the land,
Mm-hmm.
and we will certainly do some of that.
Mhm.
Go and have a look at their wonderful interior.
Yep.
We will do some of that from boat, and some of it we will do by car.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be here for the New Zealand summer when it starts, much
Right.
awaited, and then after that we're going to take a break. We're going to take a break and we're going to go back to the UK, and this might be interesting for your listeners because I think that sometimes over long periods of sailing and journeying, you need a break.
For sure.
And we'd like to go back to go and see kids and grandkids, and actually getting back to the UK is not a huge expense. So we will make the budget to do it, and we will do it, and then we will come back refreshed back to the boat.
And where will you keep the boat? Do you know?
That is to be confirmed, but we hope to. I want to get it out of the water. All the time a boat's in the water, it's at risk.
Yep.
It needs to be maintained all the time it's in the water, even if it's just to check the through holes are working. Lots of boats sink because they don't check that. So I'd like to take it out of the water, give it an opportunity to dry out for us to be able to then do sort of just checks to make sure we're not getting any water ingress into our fiberglass hull. We can do some longer term repairs, and then we're ready to go again.
For sure. And then when you guys come back and head off, what do you want to do? Do you know?
That's the big question,
Right?
And that's the lovely thing about
Tempting
this
to go back to
life.
Fiji.
We'll definitely go back to Fiji for a bit, and then I think probably Vanuatu, New Caledonia, and on.
Yeah.
If we get the right wind conditions, we might be able to go back via Tonga, which would be nice. That would tick one of the boxes. Then we come up through the Fiji-Lao group, if we can. Then we would go to Vanuatu, then New Caledonia, and then
we're
Australia.
not sure. Do you go Philippines or do you go
Indonesia?
Yeah.
And then
I mean, Philippines are kind of sketch. Very sketch. There's been a lot of
Political
bad
situation's
stuff.
not good, is it?
And there's been a lot of robberies recently on yachts and a lot of sketchy. Like if you look at Noonsight, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Philippines are sketch. So the Solomons too. It's a bummer. I'd love to go to Papua New Guinea and the Solomons, but it's just, especially solo.
no,
Like I have to avoid that when I go ashore.
Yeah.
I really only experience it in Fiji. People are like, oh yeah, you're here on a boat. Where's your boat? I'm like, and then I have to lie and be like, oh yeah, me and like 3 of my buddies sailed here, because like, oh, you're alone and your boat's right there.
Yeah,
and maybe it's not anything, but
No.
I can't take the chance of it being something.
and we do the same.
Yeah.
We do the same, and it's only we'd only ever lock the boat up for security reasons, whereby we felt there was just a hint of
Well, you would just taking normal precautions. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
My mama always said, like, don't invite someone to make the wrong decision.
Absolutely right.
It's like, don't leave your wallet on your car thing to have them bust your window out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's like, I would lock my dinghy up to the boat at night, but I don't know that I ever needed to. I think the sketchiest place I was worried about my dinghy getting so was Hawaii.
Was
Oh,
it?
really?
It is.
Interesting.
Like, you never leave
Yeah.
your dinghy on the beach in Hawaii.
Is that right?
Yeah, I would swim ashore. I would with a dry bag.
Oh,
I never.
Wow.
Like one time I did, and I left it in front of a Coast Guard, a lifeguard tower, and they would watch it for me. But it just wouldn't be there. It'd be gone.
We haven't felt worried about the dinghy. Not that we have a particularly good dinghy. I don't think
If they
anyone
stole
would-
it, we'd get a
we'd
great
actually-
insurance claim, get better dinghy.
Someone, please. The Caribbean was a bit sketchy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard that. Yeah.
But we always haul our dinghy up at night, don't we? We've got davits. We when we had our solar panel arch made, we said, right, we want davits.
Yeah.
And so for short passages, for anything less than 24 hours, we'll haul a dinghy up and keep it on the davits.
And then how do you avoid your hydrovane with that business?
Well, if we're just doing
well,
a quick
there you
pop,
go.
then we
If
don't.
we're doing
Oh,
if
I
we're doing
see.
more than 24 hours, then we're probably going to use hydrovane, so we'd have to deflate the dinghy and bring it down below.
Then we have to stow it, and then
Yeah.
we can use the hydrogen
Yeah.
at the back.
Cool.
Lots of people say they like the dinghy on the deck because it's easy to deploy it should you need to.
Yeah.
But I don't like it up there. It gets in the way. It makes moving around it difficult.
Yep.
So we tend to go the whole hog. If we
That-
need to stow the dinghy, then it comes down below.
That's what I did on both of my over 2,300 mile passages to Hawaii and then to Omotus. I had it stowed forward. But then everything since then I kept on the foredeck.
Yeah.
Because it's like we were saying, 1,000 miles, 600 miles, little hops.
Yeah. See, listen to you.
That was the other funny thing, which I'm certain that you both have experienced this as well, is you get a perversion of discomfort. So when you start, I remember early on when I'd go sailing, I'd be like, oh my gosh, quartering seas are so uncomfortable. Or on the beam, you know, and now literally I will honestly think the boat is flat until I stand up to cook dinner. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like you have like, you lose all concept of what you thought was uncomfortable pretty quickly.
I agree with that.
I
Right?
agree.
Yeah.
You get used to a
Yeah.
small space, you get used to the movement of your boat, and
you get used to sleeping in like a starfish shape. In
Yeah.
order not to
Yeah.
fall out, and occasionally you do fall out, and you do, oh, here we go again, just get back in. But trying to cook with one hand
Yep.
when you know you're at that angle and that angle, and trying to keep things in the fridge, and you know, it's just.
Isn't
it's
it
just
amusing as
another...
well how you learn to do like the pitch and roll walk?
Yep.
Yes.
You know, so when it's like port, starboard, bow, you know, stern, and you're
It's
kind
like
of
a dance,
like,
just
okay,
moving around the boat.
and you move forward in this sort of strange pattern, don't you?
Yeah, I find getting stuff out of the cabinet too, you time it with the rolls.
Yeah.
Like that.
Exactly
like, okay,
that.
here we go, here we go.
Exactly that.
Otherwise
Yeah.
it's like,
And
oh,
making a
coming
cup of coffee.
out. Yeah.
And drinking a cup of coffee that you don't spill.
Yeah.
So
Well,
the whole
that's
thing doesn't go over.
Soup is impossible at sea.
Yeah.
It's like, that's an under anchored business. It's like
When we're on passage, I have different bowls that we eat out of, so they've got a bit of a handle on them.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I use the big Yeti coffee cups. That's what I'll liquid stuff in.
Yeah, they're nice.
But you're quite right. 4 or 5 years ago, if someone said you'd be trying to cook something in a you know, like being on a roller coaster, you'd just think they're
like,
crazy.
there's no way. Yeah.
But you do it.
Yeah, and it's funny. I especially notice it because I'll see when I go to edit film the videos. I'll be sitting in the cockpit and be like, "Oh, it's been a really mellow passage," and the background is mayhem.
Yeah,
and I just laugh because at the time it felt, you know, because when you're running with following seas, you're doing this.
I tell you one time that we had a very, it wasn't amusing at the time, but on the same trip that we were from Huaheine to, from Moorea to Huaheine, we thought it was just going to be a quick hop overnight, so we had the dinghy out the back, and then we got caught in this thunderstorm with rain like you can only get in the
Big
tropics.
seas, confused seas.
And big confused seas, and I was on watch and I could see the dinghy was getting more and more at a tilt.
Oh.
And I was thinking, Christ, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? We can't stop. We can't put it down and bring it back up again.
Let me interrupt. What was happening was one of the tubes was deflating because we had a slow leak.
Yep.
The consequence was it wasn't holding the floor in.
Right.
And the floor is what we are attaching to for suspending it. So the whole dinghy was starting to come apart before our very eyes.
Yeah.
So there was this moment of, right, I need to weigh in and we need to go back. And going back isn't as, you know, it's fine. We've got a fairly big mizzen deck and we've got straps that we strap ourselves into. But the actual dinghy is hanging over the back. So in order to reach up to it, to try and pull it back on, you've actually got to suspend yourself over the back of the boat. And we were both doing this in big seas.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
We had the occasional big gopher came
and
over
they
and
would
like,
come
got your
right
knees wet.
over us both. And actually, the weirdest thing was the sea was warmer than everything else, wasn't it? It actually
It is. It's almost alarming.
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh, it kind of makes me. It's like a bathtub temperature. I'm like, that feels weird. That's a little weird.
And we had to manhandle the dinghy over the back of the deck, didn't we? And
That
then
was just
deflate
one of
it and
those
then tie it down and
3
then
in the morning moments where you just the next morning, did we really do that?
yeah.
Did
But
that
we-
actually happen?
But we did, you know, needs must and all that.
And that's the thing, right? You just get it done.
You just
You gotta get it
it
done.
and it takes
Get it done.
forever, and
Yeah.
you're both shattered and soaked and tired, but you still got to get it. You've got to get it on.
Yeah.
So that
That's
was,
like,
that
yeah,
was a
I
scary
find that-
moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was horrible.
You know what's
Really
funny is my
horrible.
passage to Huaheine was so chill,
Yeah.
and I went too fast. I had to heave too because I was
you?
like, I'm gonna get in at 3:30.
Yeah.
Like I left Moorea in the afternoon. I could
God,
not
you
believe.
did
I was
get in
like,
fast.
I got in so
Wow.
fast, and it was just. I was like, man.
The big mistake that we made, that I made in checking the weather, was only looking at the winds and the waves, and I didn't look at the cape.
Yeah.
the potential energy of the storm, and it was all over windy, and all over predict wind, and I had missed it. So it was my fault that we got caught in an electrical storm.
I wonder if, because you guys, I don't remember the dates, but I wonder if that was when I left Morea after only one day because there were storms coming.
Yeah.
So I raced to Fare Harbor.
Yeah.
And rode out storms, and I wonder if those are the storms you guys got caught in. Me and Keith were both at Fare Harbor.
Yeah.
During that. Yep.
You guys we were there at the same time Keith was there, so it was September. It was September, and I can't tell you the exact date. I know that we left from Bora Bora around about the 23rd of September, I think. So it would have been, say, 3 weeks before that.
Yeah. So I'm sure, because I left, I saw the system coming.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to go now. Because I wanted to have more days in Morea, but I was like, I'm going to go. I got in the day before, and the storms hit the next day.
Yeah.
And
I think that's one of the things that you become quite blasé sometimes. You become overconfident.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if nature is just getting there to give you a quick slap, saying, whoa, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
I
get
know
cocky,
you think
sailor.
Yeah.
Hang on a second, I'm going to throw a spanner in that one, thank you
Yeah.
very much.
That was a funny thing. You guys had a ton of comms, right?
Yeah.
On your passage to New Zealand.
Yeah, we did.
I think all of us did.
Yeah. And then nature threw us a couple of storms in the middle.
Yeah.
Good old Neptune. We had calms, and then we had very changeable conditions very quickly, and then we were back to calms again. It was just
That's
crazy.
exactly. I had 3 sets of calms and 3 sets of storms. And it was like...
And you didn't have an engine, huh?
And I didn't have an engine. So I did light wind sailing right out of Fiji.
Yeah.
And then hit a system that wasn't even on the models. It was on no model.
Yeah.
It was 100 miles wide. It was 30 knots of wind for 24 hours.
Crazy.
Just like every model said I was in 13 knots. I was like...
How could that be?
Yeah.
And then, which was good because then I had good sailing wind. I was going a wacky angle, and then calms. I had 2 days of calms. And then a system. And then a day of calms, and then that's when the big scary ones started coming. Because you guys came in before that one, right? Before?
No, we got caught in the one before and then came in just after it. And then you got caught in the second part of that cycle.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yep.
So yes.
Again, that was extraordinary. Because to
36,000.
start with, we had way too much wind. Then it sort of moderated, and we had some of the best sailing conditions that we've had. All 4 sails we had up, and we were powering along. We had mainsail, we had the genoa, the staysail, mainsail, and the mizzen, all on max, powering along. It was fantastic. Then the wind absolutely died, and we had nothing. I mean, not a breath.
Yep.
We were getting carried by the tides, and
crazy.
hey ho.
It was definitely
All
the
in the
most
day.
challenging passage.
But do you think that's because we're all so used to downwind sailing?
I think that, but I also just think it was such extreme variables for such a wide area. You know?
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's not like you've only done you haven't only done downwind sailing.
No.
You know what I mean?
Since the Atlantic, we've only done downwind, really.
But it's like, so you think about this passage, and it's also notorious, right?
Ah.
So
It is.
you know that it's not just,
And it was the one passage I have been not dreading, but being really anxious about.
Yeah. I was nervous about it until I talked to Keith about it in Fiji, and I asked Keith, I was like, what do I expect?
Yeah.
Everybody talks about the weather, you're going to get hit with some system.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I was like, how does it compare to a trade wind squall?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, it's the same, it's just longer. I was like, fine, that's no problem.
But I don't think it's the same, but
No,
longer.
I was getting over 40 knots in one of those systems. I was like, whoa!
Yeah.
Like,
And that can really go pew if you haven't got yourself sorted out before.
I was like,
We
laid
were
down real good.
almost constantly head to wind as well. We had very little.
I had I had a little bit, but none. I wasn't. The weird thing was I didn't have any beating.
No.
The seas weren't stacked up, right? So it was like I was pointing kind of high, but it was comfortable.
Yeah.
Which was strange. Yeah.
The whole trip was a bit weird, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It wasn't like anything we've done before.
No, it was certainly a change from trade wind sailing. It really was. Yeah. And the ocean's colder, so I guess that makes it a bit different.
Yeah.
Want another cup of tea? I'm gonna have a cup of tea.
Yeah. We'll close it out because I'm afraid my battery's gonna die. So, thanks you guys so much for a fantastic conversation. We're gonna keep having tea and visiting, spinning yarns. But I'll put all their info down below. And yeah, thanks for chatting with me.
Not at all.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.
All right.
Want to give a big thanks to my guest for joining me for this episode of YARNS, Conversation with Cruisers. The intro and outro songs are sung by Satya, with lyrics to the old tune rewritten by myself, James Frederick. You can find any relevant links for the guests in the description of this video. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.
When I was a little lass, my mother up and told me, "Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Someday your love will call and take you out to sea. Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. The storms will rise and waves shall fall, and new lands you shall see. Way, haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. The richest boy will be the stories that you bring me. Way, haul away, we'll haul away together.